Hello and welcome to Movie Joust. My name is Jesse Nussman, a film critic living here in Atlanta, Georgia, and with me on the other line, fellow Atlanta film critic, Mr. Jason Evans. Jason, welcome.
Hey there, I'm in mourning. Val Kilmer was a great. A real great.
Yeah. Wow, you really wanted to end this begin this on a bummer note, just like right out of the gate.
It's the big movie news, isn't it?
It is. Unless you count the, whatever is going on with this Tarantino Fincher project that's going on at Netflix, which is let's put a pin in that. But let's first pull out our 40s and pour one out for Mr. Val Kilmer, who, I'll just begin with like my relationship to Val Kilmer. I mean, just like someone who is such an integral part of so many iconic movies from the 80s and 90s, but someone who I think of as kind of a contradiction. Like, he wanted to be this kind of like very intense method actor, but yet Hollywood viewed him as this kind of like matinee idol popcorn guy. And that kind of created this like weird like push and pull dynamic with his career. What does Val Kilmer mean to you? Because you're a little bit old. You're obviously a lot older than I am. So like you kind of saw him rise and fall in real time.
You have to understand that this guy grew into consciousness with me. I mean, like I grew aware of him as a result of Top Secret, which was, if folks haven't seen it, it's sort of like Airplane except with spies. It's just this silly, ridiculous, 50 jokes a minute spy thriller kind of thing. No, thriller is wrong. It's not a thriller at all, I shouldn't say. It's a comedy. It's 100% a comedy. And so he was this comedic actor in this just weird comedy film. And then he was a comedic actor in a film called Real Genius that not a lot of people have seen, but that I really enjoyed. And so I was like, oh, this guy's really good looking and super funny. And then out of nowhere, he starts like he did The Doors and he did Top Gun. And you were just like, no, and Tombstone. And you were like, oh, this dude is just like an off the charts great actor. And that's what he was for the rest of his career, at least in my mind. And to me, the fact that he went out with Top Gun Maverick with that, a scene where he functionally doesn't speak, but he conveys so much. And so much of our relationship with him over the decades is wrapped up in our feelings. I think most people, upon seeing that movie, knew that he was suffering from throat cancer. Probably that Val Kilmer didn't have a lot of time left, that his days as a matinee idol, are completely gone, both because of his age and because of the disease. But to see there were people who legitimately said that should be in Best Supporting Actor consideration.
Yeah,
and I don't disagree.
I remember it being both times I saw that movie in the theater, like you could hear like a pin drop in the theater of like a very like solemn, very like emotional, moving moment. I probably first saw Val Kilmer, since I'm like a 90s kid, was introduced through Batman Forever, which is weird because that's
not a good movie. It's not a good movie.
It's not. And like, I'm curious, did you ever see the documentary about him that came out during the pandemic that was like all compiled with like behind the scenes recordings and video diaries that he had made his whole life? And
it was called Val. It was just called Val, right?
Yeah, and that was such a fascinating look into that kind of push and pull of like what the industry wanted him to be versus what he wanted to be. And kind of, I bring up Batman of like, that was the movie that introduced me to him, but yet in that documentary, he's pretty upfront of like, I had a miserable time making that, and that like was not the kind of movie I wanted to do. And then, as I got older, seeing him he's such an integral part of like Top Gun, even though he's maybe like the fourth biggest character in that movie. He's an integral part of Heat, even though I would say he is the kind of third person on that hierarchy behind De Niro and Pacino. He's great in Tombstone, even though he's playing like he is the scene stealing role in Tombstone, even though that's a Kurt Russell vehicle. So like all my favorite little Kilmer parts are him all just kind of coming in and giving a little pizzazz. I even love him in, if no one's ever seen Kiss Kiss Bang Bang,
I was just gonna say Kiss Kiss Bang Bang,
the like insanely underrated Shane Black comedy that is like one of Robert Downey Jr.'s kind of comeback vehicles. And Kilmer is just so much fun as this like gay private detective that is just like having to babysit Robert Downey Jr. the entire time, and is so funny and is so like just light on his feet in a way that I feel like you rarely got to see him play on screen. And then you have The Doors, which is one of
that's his masterpiece. That is his masterpiece.
I mean, one of the great, just like the epitome of like a magnificent performance inside a totally shit movie. Like I hate that movie so much, but it's
weird. It's weird. It doesn't know what it's doing.
It's like there's that quote in Almost Famous that Philip Seymour Hoffman has where he says Jim Morrison was a drunken buffoon who thinks he's a poet. And the brilliance of the Kilmer performance is that's what Kilmer's playing. But then the movie around him is like so insufferable because Oliver Stone is like, Jim Morrison really was the poet of his generation. And as someone who hates The Doors, I like can't get on board with that. But for Val, everyone should, check out his work in that movie because it is kind of a magnificent performance inside of I think a totally eye-rolling movie.
Yeah. By the way, do you know the legend about Heat that supposedly that there's the great shootout in Heat, and supposedly the way he holds his gun, the way he reloads it, and all that other kind of stuff is so perfect that supposedly that scene is shown to FBI recruits to teach them how to hold their. I think that's more legend
the
than reality.
Magic, baby.
I don't know if it's real, but that's the legend. Val Kilmer is a guy who you could always count on to put his all into a role, in my opinion. Even the train wreck that was Batman, even the train wreck that was The Doors. He gave you a great performance every single time. Sometimes the movie may not have been worthy of his performance, but the times that it was, like Tombstone, like Heat, like Top Gun, and there's a long list beyond those, you got something special. And
even when he's popping up for I forget which one it is, but there's like one of the late Terrence Malick movies that like barely anyone saw, and like Val Kilmer like shows up for one scene where he basically goes on stage at a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert and just starts chainsawing like an amplifier. And then like you never see Val Kilmer anymore for the movie, and this was I think before his like cancer got really bad. It's the like last like Val Kilmer like really speaks on screen moment. But another great example of like you're saying, like he could just come in for a few minutes in a movie and add just like the perfect amount of little spice to what you were watching.
Look, True Romance, script by Quentin Tarantino. True Romance, he plays Elvis Presley. It's so great.
Yeah.
True Romance is a movie, folks. If you have not seen, you need to see True Romance. There are some amazing performances, amazing lines. Just there's so much going on in that film. But yeah, he plays this like vision of Elvis Presley that shows up throughout the. It's the pity is that we lost Val Kilmer too soon. And not only did we lose him too soon in terms of losing him this past week, we lost him too soon. I don't know, 6-8 years ago or so when he first started battling this throat cancer. And it is a career worth looking back on and appreciating the many, many great moments.